Hi, because we're going to the library this week and exploring our collections, I want to read not the whole book, the stories are sort of long, but passages from this book called Willy's Stories. I think it's a really clever book about the power of the library, and then each book is sort of a plot synopsis of one of our major sort of classical works of children's literature. And what you'll also see is that each section ends with a question that connects with our audience and readers and makes them want to know more. Okay, so I'm going to just read a little bit from Willy's Stories, written by Anthony Brown, who I believe is also the illustrator. This book is dedicated to all the great writers and illustrators who have inspired me to make picture books. And we get a sense of who some of those are. I also want to do at this point what's also called a whole book reading, which is looking at everything. So we have our dust jacket. If I was reading this aloud, I'd say, this is called Willy's Stories. Who's Willy? What kind of stories do you think might be in this book? By looking at this picture, what do you think might happen? Right, so that's sets up the sort of anticipation, beginning by reading the sort of book cover. We don't judge a book by a cover, but we can start to make some sort of assumptions, right? Even if they're not going to come to fruition and they'll actually be challenged. So, Willy's Stories. We have this very old-fashioned modeled fly leaves inside. Indicating old library books would have that. As often happens on the inside of our dust jacket, there's a little mini version of what the story is about, that sort of information. Over on the last part is quite often the sort of author or illustrator information, and that's exactly what we have here. It's a little bio of our author, Anthony Brown. We have our dedication, we have our publication information, and here is one of those many places you might look for illustrative medium, right? It might say what sort of painting or illustrative or drawing style this is, what sort of paper, what sort of type and font even. This is what's called a motif, when we have a little illustration that's sort of there, that's not part of the text. We have a dedication. This is our title page, Willy's Stories, Anthony Brown. Every week, I walk through these doors and something incredible happens. I go on amazing adventures. Come with me and I'll show you. Now this page doesn't have a question, but we could think about what sort of questions we might ask, right? Where do you think he's walking? What are these doors? What's this building he's entering? What sort of adventures do you think he might go on, right? And let our reader sort of make some sort of guesses, because he actually goes on some great adventures. So I'll just give a few examples of these over the next few pages. And when I end with the question, you'll see this is the question that follows for each passage. One day, I went through the doors and found I was shipwrecked with the captain's dog on a desert island. I could see no one was there, and apart from a friendly parrot, I was all alone. I walked by the sea looking for signs of life, but I never saw anything. Then, one day, I knew it was a Friday, as I had been marking the days on a calendar. I saw a footprint in the sand. I froze as if I had seen a ghost. I looked around and up and down the beach. I listened, but I could hear nothing and see nothing. I checked to see if I had imagined the footprints. I sometimes do imagine things. But there it was, the exact shape of a foot in the sand. But I was sure there was no one else on the island. I was stunned. Whose footprint do you think it was? And I'll skip ahead. You can see some of the other sort of adventures. I'll just read the sort of questions as I skip along. What do you think happened then? Can you guess what happened next? If you had been me, what would you have done? Okay. So you can see how those sort of questions are put in here and makes the reader really connect with the text. So I'm going to jump ahead to one that will become familiar. One time, I went through the doors, and I know it sounds crazy. I felt myself falling down a dark, deep hole, a rabbit hole. It was so deep that I had time to look around as I fell. The walls were covered with shelves full of curious objects, and I grabbed at one as I tumbled down. After such a fall as this, I said to myself, I shall think nothing of tumbling downstairs. Down, down, down I went. Would this fall never end? Suddenly, with a whoosh and a thump, I landed on a heap of dry leaves. But I wasn't hurt, and I jumped to my feet. It was dark. As my eyes got used to the dim light, I saw a figure with big ears hurrying down a long passageway and turning a corner. I could swear it was a white rabbit. I looked at a pocket watch and then hurried on. I ran after it, around the corner, and then, what do you think I saw? Right, so there's several more of these, so I'll just get to the conclusion. You could read one of these a day, right? There's different ways of reading this. So he ends with this one where he escapes a shark. What do you think it was, and what do you think I found? You'll never guess, not in a million years. Okay, so that's the last of his sort of adventures with that. Next time, why don't you come with me on my travels? Or better still, why not go on some of your own? I can't wait for my next adventure. And then you can see up close what sort of books he has, which are the short plot synopses he gave us. Robinson Crusoe, that was the one I read about finding the footprints in the sand, because Robinson Crusoe finds one other survivor on the island whom he names Friday. We have other things such as Treasure Island, Robin Hood, The Tinderbox, Peter Pan, and of course I read from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. So it's a beautiful book that's just about the adventures of library, and makes kids want to read some of these books. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you enjoy your own, finding your own adventures in your own books at the library this week.